after the closing bell, shares of both companies are now higher. FedEx beat up by 8.5%. FedEx riding a wave of e-commerce demand that's boosting its pricing power to a degree not seen in the parcel industry in years. Adobe is reporting revenue that topped analyst estimates. Shares up now by about 1.7%. Sources say a national security panel reviewing Oracle's bid for TikTok is meeting this afternoon to decide whether to recommend the president approve or reject that deal. Equities moved higher. Little changed in the Dow, pushing higher right at the close there, up by 2 points. Little changed again. The S&P up 17, up 0.5%, 3 in a row there for the S&P. Nasdaq up 133, up 1.2%. 10-year down 2/32 with a yield of 0.68%. Gold down 0.1%, 19.54 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude up 3.1%, 38.42 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, let's catch up with an old pal of ours, Vinny Catalano, Chief Market Strategist for Stuyvesant Capital Management, also Global Investment Strategist at Defoe Red Mount, joining us on the phone from New Jersey. Vinny, missed you at the U.S. Open. I feel like, the world is just not the same. We're not seeing you and all of that. Yeah. And these markets are just so kooky right now, and as usual, you've got a take, so share it with us.
Okay. Well, the feeling is mutual in terms of not seeing you guys as well. And, yeah, it's not the same, but we'll get there eventually. During the pandemic, one of the benefits, if there is one, is the ability to spend more time contemplating some of the other issues that are in this complex system called the stock market. And one of them deals with something that has to do with the nature of investors moving money at different points in time from one asset manager to another and what the implications of that are. This is not core to the investment decision-making process. It is not essential like the discounted cash flow model inputs and stuff like that, or monetary policy and or globalization or innovation. But this is one of the elements that is worth looking at, and I wish that there was some statistical analysis of this. So what I'm about to say is really anecdotal from my experience working with individual investors. Investors tend to move money when markets go up. They go from asset manager to asset manager more frequently than they will in down markets. Now, that's an interesting little factoid, but what does it mean? What it means, from what I can tell, is that the bias tends to be for financial advisors to be bullish, permanently bullish, because if I know that I'm going to lose assets to someone else in an up market, then I want to be more bullish more often than I do ordinarily, let's say. So it's a dynamic that is just kind of an interesting thing, and I sent a message to my good friend Bud Hazlitt over at the CFA Research Foundation, and I said, hey, Bud, could you look at this? And it would be good to kind of see if this is so.
And anything back from him yet?
No, Bud didn't respond yet. I sent it to him this morning. Once I know definitely this is what we're going to cover. But I'll make sure that I pester him enough on this.
Well, why is this important that you point this out? Just talk to us. I'm thinking about our listeners who are, hearing what you're saying right now, Vinny, and kind of trying to understand this market environment, which is an interesting one, that despite some of the stresses that were out there, once we got beyond the initial sell-off because of the virus, it does feel like there's nowhere but up, certainly when it comes to equity classes. But tell us why you think this is important for investors to be aware of.
Well, they should be aware of it, I believe, because it's an influencing factor upon the advice that they receive, or at least the advice that I would have given when I worked at Merrill Lynch for 25 years, which is that, the leaning, the tendency is more toward being long-term bullish, mainly because equities do tend to rise longer term. If you adopt the Warren Buffett approach to investing and you just don't get caught up in market cycles, then buy and hold becomes something that is fundamentally a good thing to do. But this is another dynamic, and the dynamic here is the personal interest of the financial advisor, and whether or not that becomes an influencing factor for them to be more bullish than they, not just because of the fundamentals, but also because of the fact that I know that I could lose my clients to someone else, and the tendency is for it to be in up markets. Now, again, anecdotal, my experiences, nothing unethical or illegal or anything like that is going on. It's just a dynamic that's I think is worth someone exploring and looking into, because it could be an influencing factor.
And so, Vinny, in the age of Robinhood, in the age of all this technology that we've dealt with, I feel in the age of zero commissions and low fees and all of that, are we on the verge of a reckoning in the money management business, do you think? Or is this going to sort of ramble on indefinitely?
Okay, what I'm describing is not what you just asked, but yes, I think it'll ramble on. I think that it'll just continue to go on. People, part of the dynamic here, Jason, is that unfortunately there's just too high of a level of financial illiteracy in which individual investors just really don't feel comfortable enough to ask the right kind of questions. The focus on gains versus percentage returns and relative performance. This is a market that's dominated by institutional investors, and it behooves the average investor to understand the nature of the beast. How does the institutional investor make his or her decisions? And they make them based upon relative performance and other factors. And so therefore, I'm hopeful that someday there will be a higher level of financial literacy. And that's kind of the other element and dynamic that's here, in trying to understand the decision-making process that an individual investor has to go through. It's almost like being afraid of math or something like that.
Well, this has been, I feel like, Vinny, financial literacy has certainly been a conversation throughout my career doing business news, which has been a long time. It's kind of not a new thing, but as the markets get more complicated and you want to make sure that when you're investing, you kind of understand what's going on and kind of where your advisor is coming from. All right, Vinny, thank you so much. Vinny Catalano, he's Chief Market Strategist at Stuyvesant Capital Management and Global Investment Strategist at Defoe Redmat, joining us on the phone from New Jersey.
Coming up, I guess we can't call it whole paycheck to him, but we are going to talk to the CEO of Whole Foods, right?
Listen, Whole Foods, John Mackey, man, he really changed the way we look at supermarkets and our expectations. And yeah, sometimes it's more expensive. Yes, it's more expensive, but I have to say, I'm kind of a disciple. I really respect what he's done.
Yeah, no, I'm in.
And the whole idea of just kind of better food choices and options for people, and thinking about where the food is produced as well. So
where it comes from, I think, is a really, really big deal. That it's one of these things that once you really start to learn about it, you can't unlearn it.
No.
It's like anyone who's read Omnivore's Dilemma or any of those sorts of books in that oeuvre is,
I've got his other book. It's signed by him on my. I'm showing it to you right
now. Yeah,
I know. I went to the 92nd
No one else can see that.
I know. Conscious Capitalism, 92nd Street Y, a few years ago. Actually, I think our Norm Pearlstein.
Wow, throwback.
I know.
There you go.
It was a few years ago. So anyway, John's got a new book out, so we're going to get into that. This one's called Conscious Leadership. So we'll see what he has to say about the world at large, about Whole Foods. So much to come. John Mackey joining us right here on Bloomberg Business Week on Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Let's begin with FedEx riding a wave of e-commerce demand that is boosting its pricing power to a degree not seen in the parcel industry in years. After the bell, FedEx had an earnings beat, shares up by roughly 8%. Also reporting after the bell, we heard from Adobe. It's out with revenue that topped analyst estimates, signaling robust demand for the software maker's cloud-based creative tools during the coronavirus pandemic. Shares up by just about 1%. Turned out to be an up day for the U.S. stock market. Stocks advanced as gains in tech shares helped offset a late slide in financials. Crude oil pushed higher while the dollar was little changed. S&P 500 rose for a third consecutive trading session led by communication services, real estate, and consumer discretionary shares. J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Bank of America pushed financials into the red. Well, as for the economic backdrop, Peter Cheer is with Academy Securities.
But if you think back when we had 20% unemployment numbers, everyone who was unemployed was getting an extra $600 per week, and it felt very temporary. What concerns me right now is the unemployed that remain are not getting as much. It seems longer term. It seems like it's going to get harder to get back. And you are starting to see new people become unemployed. If Citibank and some of these other firms start going through with these layoffs.
Well, he mentioned Citibank, and Citigroup will resume job cuts starting this week, joining rivals such as Wells Fargo in ending an earlier pledge to pause staff reductions during the coronavirus pandemic. Today, we saw Citigroup shares lower by 6.9%. Also, a story we're following for you, Discover Financial Services. Its CEO says Discover expects delinquencies to pick up through the second half of the year as white-collar job losses are likely to come amid coronavirus-related shutdowns. Discover Financial lower today, along with other financial stocks, down 1.6%. J.P. Morgan Chase, for example, lower by 3.1%. S&P up 17, up 0.5. The Dow up 2 points, little change there. NASDAQ up 133, up 1.2%. 10-year yield 0.67%. Gold at $19.54 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude up 3%, $38.39 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This is Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
And it is Bloomberg Business Week. And as we kick off the last hour of our broadcast, we're going to kind of catch up in just a minute with John Mackey over at Whole Foods. Also going to get an update later on in the show about Carnival and specifically what went on in Australia. The government there essentially being like, oh, cool, you want to dock your ship here? Oh, wait, what? COVID? No.
Well, just reminding, it takes us back to March and what especially the hospitality, the travel, the leisure industry was dealing with. So we're going to get to that in just a moment. Right now, though, we want to get to another edition of Business Week Talks. This will be featured in an upcoming issue of the magazine. John Mackey is CEO and co-founder of Whole Foods Market. Prior to that, co-CEO of the company he founded. Whole Foods, once on its own, now it's in its third year as part of Amazon. And John's got a new book out released today. It's Conscious Leadership, Elevating Humanity Through Business. And John joins us on the phone from Austin, Texas. And I've got to say, your book, Conscious Capitalism, it's on my bookshelf. It's signed by you. It was back at the 92nd Street Y. I think it was a conversation you had with Norm Pearlstein, who was our head of content at Bloomberg for several years. So,
in
John,
front of human people, probably.
In front of human people, not virtually, John. So delighted to have you here with us. How are you?
I'm very well. I've heard so often people having my book on their bookshelves, but a lot less that people actually read it.
Okay. We read it. I read it. The family did. But so tell us a little bit about how you're doing and in the pandemic.
This pandemic has been obviously extremely difficult for pretty much everybody, right? 2020 is the weirdest year of my life. I don't know about you, but it's definitely the weirdest year. And I mean, Whole Foods has done a lot better than other businesses because we weren't shut down. We were an essential business, and we saw our sales go up and our online sales went way up. But it's been incredibly stressful on the company. Make no mistake about that. People didn't lose their jobs, but it's been we've had to go to a mask for everybody's wearing masks, and we've had we haven't been able to connect with the team members as much because, lockdown, not traveling, not being able to visit the stores. A lot of safety measures been put in place. It's been, we just did a Cultural Compass survey, and we see that it's been very stressful on the team members. So that has been a challenge for us, but again, less of a challenge for Whole Foods than many, like a restaurant owner who's more or less been put out of business. So very, very difficult times, and I will tell you, I am very much looking forward to COVID being done.
Yeah.
I don't know when that'll be, but I'm going to be celebrating.
Along with everybody else, that's for sure. So, John, I guess on the subject of your book and sort of synthesizing all of this, what's the key leadership lesson coming through this? And we're not through it yet by any stretch, but what have you learned about leading? What have you learned about how to lead in a situation like this?
You mean
in COVID?
In COVID. COVID's a great example of how you can learn and grow in a crisis. In a crisis, the general reaction people have when they're in crisis is to sort of look for a safe place, a safe harbor, someplace that they're not going to be safe. But one thing I've learned is that in crisis, that's a great opportunity to learn and grow, and you have to lean into it. You have to kind of, instead of going back to a safe place, you've got to open wider to see what lessons are there, and you have to face your fears. And one of the things that I learned is that Whole Foods has a very deep culture because we've been making cultural deposits for a long time, but during COVID, we've been making a lot of cultural withdrawals. But we're not bankrupt because we've got so many deposits that have been made. However, as COVID goes on longer and longer and we're not able to make more deposits and connecting with people, a company is ultimately about relationships and about trust and about partnership. And the hardest thing in COVID, I think, has been the difficulty, other than virtually, to connect with people. And we read all about people working at home, and a lot of corporations are not going to go back fully, but I don't believe that. More people may work at home when COVID's over, but in reality, if you're going to maintain a culture, you have to have people connecting with each other, and there's no real substitute for doing that in person. So I've learned our culture is resilient, but I've also learned that we need that personal connection too.
No, I think you're right about that. Jason and I have had, John, so many different conversations because we're seeing certainly the financial community, it seems like, really stepping up and really kind of urging their teams to come back to work in New York City. But I think it's a comfort level and people are just not comfortable. And it's not that people don't want to be working with colleagues. We're social creatures. But I think there is a fear. For most of us, right, we have never seen something like this.
It's true. And maybe people won't be comfortable until we have vaccination that people feel safe in taking. But in truth, I think the concept of herd immunity it's beginning to work its way through the United States. It's worked its way through Sweden at this point. If you look at their recent death rates, they're just a few people a week. Now, not hundreds or thousands of people a day. It's 3 or 4 a week. So we're going to get through this, and probably a lot sooner than people think. I'd be very surprised if a year from now we have not returned to semi-normalcy.
Right.
And people will be afraid, but as their friends go out and report back, hey, it's safe out there, people aren't getting sick, and people will start to tentatively venture out, probably wearing masks more, but and that might be a while before people are completely back. But they will be, because we are who we are. We're social creatures. And, I remember, I'm old enough to remember, I had lots of friends, not lots, I have a few friends back in elementary school that got polio. I'm old enough to.
John, can I break in for a second, because we have to do some news, and this is a story I'd like to not rush you on. So if you can just hold on for a second, we're going to do that news, and then we're going to come back and continue. John Mackey is with us, CEO, co-founder of Whole Foods. He's got a new book out called Conscious Leadership. We'll get back to him in just a moment. Let's get a check on world and national news headlines. Over to you, Ed Baxter.
All right, thank you, Carol. New hope for Middle East peace. That's a question. Israel, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain signing an agreement to normalize relations. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says a positive future.
To all of Israel's friends in the Middle East, those who are with us today and those who will join us tomorrow, I say, Assalamu alaikum. Peace unto thee. Shalom.
Ceremony at the White House. World Health Organization is coming out today urging more pandemic prevention globally, especially until there's a vaccine. Dr. Margaret Harris on Bloomberg says there are a lot of candidates working.
The important thing to understand is we've got a very good chance of having at least one, if not more, excellent candidates, because we've got 9 vaccines going into what we call phase 3 trials, and we've got another more than 150 at various stages of development.
But she says when dealing with a lot of trials, there's a 90% fail rate. Bill Gates, whose foundation has been working on funding a vaccine today with Bloomberg's Eric Schatzker, says he thinks political pressure has cost the CDC and the FDA credibility.
Well, the CDC is largely being written out of the picture because you have people at the White House who aren't epidemiologists, you know, saying what a great job they've done. And so it's no longer a set of experts.
He says he hopes politics isn't playing at the lower levels where the work is really being done. And if you want to keep up with the Kardashians, you have to freeze your Facebook and Instagram. She says too much hate and misinformation. She has 188 million Instagram followers. I'm Ed Baxter.
All right, Ed, this is Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Master. I want to pick right up where Ed Baxter left off. First of all, whoa, 188 million followers. That is, this is going to surprise you. That's more than I have.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
By like 188.9999 million.
Well, when you talk about people who know how to work at social media, she is among them. And she says she's going to be freezing her Facebook and Instagram accounts tomorrow, asking others to do the same, quote, to tell Facebook to #StopHateForProfit, saying in a tweet that she couldn't sit by and stay silent while the social platforms continue to let, quote, hate, propaganda, and misinformation, end quote, spread. She says misinformation shared on social media has a serious impact on our elections and undermines our democracy. And yes, Jason, she has 188 million followers. You know, as we like to stay in our household when somebody does something or says something, and everybody's like gets upset, and we're like, but are they right?
Yeah.
And she's not wrong.
Right. Oh, I thought you were going to say we like to like somehow quote Kim Kardashian West.
Now we don't quote KK a lot, but I do think about, you know, when we're worried about the outcome of an election again, and you know this gets to the heart of our democracy. These are serious things, and it goes to accountability. A newspaper that printed slander or something, they would be responsible and sued
and put out of business.
Left and right and put out of business. So what is the role of social media in our society? What are they?
So this campaign that's backed by the Anti-Defamation League and the NAACP, among others, is called Stop Hate for Profit, and they are calling for a 24-hour Instagram freeze on September 16th. That is tomorrow. So we will see whether that takes hold in any sort of meaningful way. We have seen the power of social media for good and bad.
Totally.
And we've seen some influencers really step in. I think about some of the things that have happened around social justice when you think about the NBA and others. So more to come. All part of this sort of more human world we're trying to create. More on that coming up next.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. Move higher for the Dow. The S&P and NASDAQ gains in technology shares helped offset a late slide in financials. S&P up for a third consecutive session led by communication services, real estate, and consumer discretionary shares. J.P. Morgan Chase, Citigroup, and Bank of America pushed financials into the red. Crude oil advanced today while the dollar was little changed. Your closing numbers: S&P 500 index up 17 at 3401, up 0.5%. The Dow little changed, up 2 points, giving up earlier gains. NASDAQ up 133 points, up by 1.2%. 10-year down 230 seconds with a yield of 0.67%. Gold at $19.54 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude up 3%, $38.39 a barrel. After earnings, FedEx shares, they are now surging 9% after hours. Adobe after hours up now by 2.5%. Recapping stocks higher, S&P up 17, up 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. We're here with John Mackey, CEO and co-founder of Whole Foods Market. He's got a new book out. It's called Conscious Leadership, Elevating Humanity Through Business. And he's with us on the phone from Austin, Texas. I want to ask you, John, I mean, here we are a few years in, with Amazon. How's it going? What has worked really well for you?
Yeah, it's going very well. A big merger between two big companies is a little bit like a marriage. I like that metaphor. And I mean, I've been married for 30 years, and I love my wife, and I love, maybe 99% of everything about her, and 1% I'm not so fond of. And I think a merger is similar. I mean, Amazon has a different culture than Whole Foods. We overlap in some areas, and we love most things about Amazon, and they probably love most things about Whole Foods, but not everything. And what's worked really well is Amazon thinks long term, and they're enabling Whole Foods Market to think long term. We've had 3 major price reductions. We're beginning a 4th. They're making investments in technology for Whole Foods that I think will be transformative, although I'm sorry I can't talk about those. And they've been respectful of our culture. They haven't tried to just turn us into Amazon. So the best way to answer that question is, John, if you could do it all over again, would you make the same decision? And the answer is yes, we'd make the same decision. It was the right decision for us.
I have to tell you, a listener is writing in and said, could you just ask John Mackey, could they please open a Whole Foods in the Hamptons?
In the Hamptons, yeah, we've received a lot of requests for that. It's a very seasonal sort of market out there, and we'll get there eventually.
There you go. See, the question answered.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I think our team was curious about, is you guys, Whole Foods. I did kind of a deep dive into your company a few years ago, and with Walter Robb, who was co-CEO at the time. I spent time with a forager, just how you guys work with companies, support companies to help them build out either production, so that they can, once you find an item that you want in your stores, you guys have such a value system, and you really stick to selling just certain types of things. And to be fair, if you go on Amazon, you can buy just about anything, it feels like, and that they'll sell just about anything to anyone. How have those values clashed, if at all, and how do you kind of get your head around that?
I don't think those values have clashed. I mean, I think you're right. Whole Foods we're very, we're very stakeholder oriented. We care deeply about our suppliers. We partner with them. And we are proud of the fact that we work with lots of small producers and help them get distribution. And a lot of them grow with us over time, and they start out with one store and then one region and then multiple regions and then across the whole country, and then maybe they sell their company or take it public. I mean, a great example recently was Vital Farms eggs. Whole Foods was the first customer Vital Farms ever had, and we over time made a $10 million investment in their company as well. And they just did an IPO, and their market capitalization is $1.4 billion right now. So that's a great example of working with a small supplier and helping them expand across the country, and eventually they become a very, very successful company in their own right. We pride ourselves on that. There's really dozens and dozens and dozens of similar examples like that. And Amazon, you know, it's a different business than what Whole Foods is doing. They're a retailer. They're the everything store, as you say. If I want something, I generally just go to my iPhone or my iPad or my computer, and I just call up Amazon. I order it, and it shows up usually within 24 hours. So that's an amazing thing Amazon does. It's changed most people's lives. It certainly has changed my life. Yeah. That's very different than what Whole Foods is doing. But Whole Foods is, you know, Amazon wants to be a bigger force in grocery, and Whole Foods is key to helping them do that. So I think that's why they ultimately wanted to acquire us.
So, John, you know, you're very thoughtful in your books, and this recent one is no example. I mean, I do wonder what's ahead for you. There's been a lot of speculation that, you know, you could go on and keep writing books, and you've executed this great, as you say, new marriage between these two companies. And I'm only going to give you about 90 seconds to answer this question, but what's next? Do you foresee that maybe you hand over the reins soon?
You know, I like to think, I read recently Warren Buffett. I read that Warren Buffett, his 90% of Warren Buffett's wealth has been generated after the age of 65. I would like to think that 90% of my contribution in the world will be generated after I'm 65. That's my goal. So I don't have any plans on leaving anytime soon from Whole Foods, but hey, you know, I'm getting older. We all have to pass from the scene eventually. I know there are many other things. I'm very much a doer. I have many projects in life I want to work on. I want to travel. I want to hike. I want to spend more time with my wife. I want to spend more time with friends. But right now, I'm having the time of my life in this Whole Foods adventure. Yeah. So I'm going to keep doing that, and until it's my inner heart, my voice says, "Hey, John, it's time to move on." And that will come someday, but it's not today.
All right. Well, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the book. You're always so thoughtful, and that really shows up in all of your work, whether you're in one of your stores or reading your books or listening to you talk. So we really appreciate the time, John.
Yeah, and glad there are companies like, you know, Whole Foods out there in terms of standards. I think, you know, we started off the show with IKEA and their CEO, head of the group, and, you know, this whole idea of thinking about the environment, the world, and just doing something in a better way. So really cool stuff. John Mackey, co-founder, chief executive officer of Whole Foods Market, joining us on the phone from Austin, Texas. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
Broadcasting live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 1061. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
So we heard it from FedEx. People doing a lot of e-commerce these days. It's driving a lot of business. We heard it from a guy who works for Amazon.com just now. People buying a lot of stuff online.
Yeah, people like you and me and our families and everybody else. So we're going to get into it because a really cool company that's involved in e-commerce specifically, but using live streaming to help brands really tap into their consumers. So we'll get to that in just a moment. First up, though, back to your top business stories and back to Charlie Pellet.
All right. I thank you very much, Carol Masser, and happy Tuesday to you both. We've got FedEx riding a wave of e-commerce demand, and that is boosting its pricing power to a degree not seen in the parcel industry in years, helping strengthen the courier's profit amid the coronavirus pandemic. Shares jumping after hours, earnings beating estimates, FedEx up by roughly 8%. Adobe also beating estimates, signaling robust demand for the software maker's cloud-based creative tools during the coronavirus pandemic. Adobe shares up by about 2%. Sources say a U.S. national security panel reviewing Oracle's bid for TikTok is meeting to decide whether to recommend the president approve or reject the deal. Federal Reserve policymakers have begun their two-day meeting. We'll be getting a decision 2 o'clock Wall Street time tomorrow. The news conference to be carried live here on Bloomberg Radio, 2:30 Wall Street time. As for what to expect, Priya Misra is global head of rate strategy at TD Securities USA.
They want flexibility, and I'm all for flexibility, but at least clarify the intent, clarify that you're willing to do what it takes. They need to buy more, they'll buy more. If they need to extend the weighted average maturity of their buying, they'll do it. I think we need to hear that from Chair Powell.
J.P. Morgan Chase sent some of its Manhattan workers home this week after an employee in equities trading tested positive for COVID-19. This according to a source. News of the infection on the 5th floor of the company's 383 Madison Avenue building in Manhattan was communicated to employees on September 13th. The case does point out the challenges that banks are facing as they try to bring more staff back to the office after months of remote work. J.P. Morgan Chase shares financials hit hard today. J.P. Morgan Chase was down by 3.1%. Turned out to be an up day, barely for the Dow, up by 2 points. Little change there. S&P up 17, up 0.5. NASDAQ up 133, up 1.2%. 10-year yield 0.68%. Gold, little change, $19.54 the ounce. Crude, West Texas Intermediate surged 3%, $38.39 a barrel. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, let's jump into our conversation with Brandon Cruz. He's the CEO of Comment Sold. He joins us on the phone from Huntsville, Alabama, a lovely town, Space City down there.
My dad spent a lot of that during the space program.
Took my brother to space camp there, just saying. All right, so Brandon, really good to have you with us. So live streaming, this is such a cool concept. Help us understand what you're talking about, because we live in an era of e-commerce, that's for sure.
Yes. First, thanks for having me, and I'm calling in here from Silicon Valley, as we like to call it, in Huntsville, Alabama.
Silicon.
That's really funny. Sorry.
You guys can borrow that anytime you want, no problem.
Okay, got it.
It's been really revolutionary in our world. We like to call what we're doing now sort of democratized QVC or democratized HSN. So as a small retailer or medium retailer, you can sign up for Comment Sold, go live on Facebook, your own website, your own mobile app, and sell products just like you'd see a host sell products live on TV, but to your own audience, over the internet.
So obviously the pandemic, I would say, and not to be too glib about it, but has been good for business, right? I mean, there's so much more e-commerce going on out there. Can you give us some measurement around that? Like, how has it really manifested as people have been, quarantined and stuck at home?
So we've noticed two really major impacts. The first has been viewership of live. So as people are staying home, and even as they're getting back into their routine, they're really falling in love with these retailers that are selling live, and they're tuning in every single night, and they're consuming an hour of live video every night. And we're really kind of competing against Facebook and Netflix, essentially, for eyeball watch time, which has been fascinating. So that's been a really big metric. The second has really been Comment Sold did about $326 million in GMV in product sales last year, and we're going to eclipse $1 billion this year, even though we're on track for much less than that in the beginning of the year. So.
All right, wait. I got to ask you, Brennan. Okay, so Jason and I are not cool kids. So how does this work? Like, if we're following influencers, like all of a sudden they're going to say, hey, this is the pocketbook I wore to the opening. But of course, there are no openings right now. But explain to me, or is it, hey, I like these hot dogs. And like, how does it work? Help me out here.
That's a great question. So it's primarily brick and mortars. We like to say the bricks to clicks. Brick and mortars that are trying online really as a method of, it started out as survival at the beginning of the year and has very much turned into their primary sales channel. So we have someone that might own, let's say, 1 or 2 brick and mortar stores in a rural town in Alabama, and they start going live and selling to the exact same audience that used to come into their store but no longer could come in. And they're having conversations, they're building relationships, people are watching live on their phone, they're typing in questions, the host is answering how it fits, what they might wear it with. Very much what you'd experience in a retail store, but essentially just online, so you have a lot more of that scalability. And we've seen the sales from people that were doing $20,000 a month in sales pre-pandemic to over $1 million a month now, which is just wild.
So where does it go from here? I mean, I believe you have shared with us that it's big in China. Obviously, China is often ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to consumption patterns and things like that. Is this ultimately heavily dependent on mobile? Like, where does it go from here? Only got about a minute left, unfortunately.
We found that what's happening in China, I think, is very indicative of what happens here. What's interesting, though, is that it's mainly an older demographic. This isn't the millennial generation testing new shopping methods. It's very much, I think, the next natural iteration of maybe your mother or grandmother watching on HSN, but on your mobile phone instead. And we really think that will continue to grow with that 35 to 44-year-old demographic primarily. It's been really powerful to watch.
Well, for anyone who's like couldn't sleep at night and you get kind of, I've done this once or twice where you all of a sudden get caught into like the shopping channel. And it's like the programming is kind of like wild. And you just all of a sudden you're like, I need that. I haven't bought anything, but it's like, I get it. No. It's kind of, I think it's a slippery slope.
But I think somebody's going to find you via Comment Sold. They're gonna hit that Carol Masser demographic. All right, Brandon Cruz, thank you so much, CEO of Comment Sold. He joined us on the phone from Silicon Valley. Talking about Huntsville, Alabama.
Silicon Valley.
Add it to your T-shirt list.
I'm going to add it.
Debbie Kelly will buy that one.
Oh, my God. That is just great, right?
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
It's just
Listen,
so clever.
Huntsville, I remember living in Atlanta and see how I'm dropping my G's there. And Huntsville has an amazing tech presence because of NASA.
My dad was spending so much time down there that his colleagues bought him a set of clubs so that when he came down there, he could play golf. Because he was down there all the time.
Robert Trent Jones Trail, I believe, goes right through Huntsville.
All right.
There you go.
Cool stuff. Stick around. We got a fascinating story that's in the magazine. It has to do with the virus. It has to do with cruise lines. Let's get back to Ed Baxter and roll the national news headlines. Hey, Ed.
All right. Hey, Carol. Japanese LDP party leader Yoshihide Suga is to be formally elected prime minister today. The session should begin about 1 p.m. Tokyo. He's expected to name his cabinet, and new ministers are likely to speak to the media before the end of the day. We should be following it, of course, on Daybreak Asia. Agreement signed today between Israel, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House says a new day for the Middle East.
This day is a pivot of history. It heralds a new dawn of peace.
U.S. brokered deal. WHO says there are 9 vaccines going into phase 3 trials and hundreds of other phases of development, but the organization spokeswoman, Dr. Margaret Harris, says there is a caveat here.
Normally, when you've got lots of things, products in development, you'll see a 90% fail rate. So we still don't know which ones are going to come out.
And speaking of vaccines, Bill Gates is out today, and Bloomberg saying that both the CDC and the FDA have been tarnished by political environment.
Historically, just like the CDC was viewed as the best in the world, the FDA had that same reputation as a top-notch regulator. But, there's been some cracks with some of the things they've said. At the commissioner level, hopefully the staff isn't pulled in that direction.
Yeah, the Gates Foundation donates to global vaccine development. Bipartisan House caucus, 50 members, half GOP, half Democrats, laying out a relief bill roadmap today. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Ed, thanks so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Well, we talked about Town Sports running into its bankruptcy trouble.
Yes.
They may reopen at some point in some form or fashion. You know what's not going to reopen? Flywheel.
God, can you
Done.
even believe this?
Yes.
Okay, you can. Yep, you're right. Flywheel Sports, the operator of Spin Boutiques, really, I feel like for a long time everybody was talking about them. Filed for bankruptcy, plans to go out of business after the virus shut down all of its studios.
I mean,
Chapter 7, not Chapter
right.
11,
Yeah.
Chapter 7.
7 is like, we're done here, folks. Liquidate.
Yeah.
You know, I say I'm not surprised only because it's been a long struggle to get to this point.
Yeah.
There were a lot of, there were some infusions of capital trying to hold it up. It's something that the pandemic certainly accelerated. Their at-home bike didn't work. I mean, it worked, but it was not a successful product in many ways. It came out right around the same time as Peloton. SoulCycle has come into that market as well. The sort of early returns on that have not been great as well. Peloton really owns that at-home bike market. Flywheel had a very distinct ethos versus SoulCycle. It was all about the torque board and, competing and things like that. And it just didn't go on. Did you ever do Flywheel?
It didn't fly, huh?
It didn't fly.
See what
Nice
I did
job.
there?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
It's not really on brand for you, I have to say. It's very aggro.
It's very aggro. Is it really?
Totally. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, literally, like, there's a video board in the front of the classroom where, like, you could see, like, who you were competing with. Whereas SoulCycle is you got the candles and the everything. You're more of a SoulCycle.
I'm more of a SoulCycle. Yeah. I'm more of a Peloton. Listen, this is what's happening though, right? The fitness models that make sense, that are figuring it out. I also think there's something to, like you said, if you offer up a bike, that's the quality makes a difference. All right. Anyway, this is what's going on in fitness, big time. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Masser, Jason Kelly, and this is Bloomberg Radio.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at Bloomberg Quick Take. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We're keeping an eye on FedEx shares after hours. FedEx is up now by just about 8.7%. FedEx also says that ground Sunday service now reaches 95% of the population. Adobe shares up 2.2% after hours. It reported sales that topped estimates on creative software. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all advancing today. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, little change, eking out just about a 2-point gain today. We did see the S&P 500 index climbing by 17 points for the S&P. That was a gain of about 0.5%. NASDAQ up 133 points today, higher by 1.2%. So again, recapping here, equities higher, S&P up 17, a gain there of 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly, and we've got part 3 of the magazine's coverage on the cruise giant Carnival Corporation. Really incredible coverage of what's happened in the cruise industry, specifically on Carnival, as COVID-19 was rearing its ugly head back in February and March specifically. Here with some in-depth reporting, Bloomberg News senior reporter Matthew Campbell, up early in Singapore for us, which we really, really appreciate. Matt, thank you. Along with Bloomberg Business Week editor Joel Weber on the phone in Massachusetts. And, you know, this is one industry, Joel, that there was just so many questions about in terms of what they knew and how they handled the virus. But it's not only what they knew, but also officials that they were dealing with.
That's right, and you know, more than an industry, where this series is really focused on Carnival, and the story that Matt did. You know, this is sort of we viewed it as sort of part 3 here. The first take was sort of on a more corporate level, what they knew and didn't know, and how they actually dropped the ball really. The second one, we put you on the Zandam, and actually was one of the ships that was looking for a port. It basically circumnavigated South America trying to find a port as people started to die. But more people died on the ship that Matt ended up writing about for this forthcoming issue than any other Carnival ship in the world. And this all happened in Australia. And what was super significant about this was the timing. It was early, and basically the ship actually, with Australian officials kind of looking on, waved people off, and it became effectively a super spreader ship. Matt, what kind of fallout has there been in Australia since this went down?
Well, Joel, this, as you mentioned, was relatively early on, though actually not that early. It was mid-March. So the Diamond Princess, which was the first really notorious cruise ship, it would have happened over a month earlier. 28 people died as a result of this coronavirus outbreak on board the Ruby Princess. And as you alluded to, what makes the Ruby Princess really distinct was, unlike the Zandam, unlike the Diamond Princess, where passengers couldn't get off, on the Ruby Princess, everyone got off. They were in fact kind of hustled off rather quickly, according to what many passengers said. So you had 2,600 passengers from the ship where it turned out the virus was rampant, just walking onto the streets of Sydney, and the results were predictably pretty severe.
So where did it break down, Matt? I mean, was this who's ultimately did some terrific reporting here? Like, who's ultimately sort of culpable here?
Well, there was, Jason, clearly a failure at the level of officialdom in Australia, particularly at the state level in New South Wales, and that's something that the state government has now admitted to. This ship was cleared to unload on the basis of a judgment that really shouldn't have been made, and there were specific failures within the process by which it was cleared. I think also, though, while there was a public inquiry that found that Carnival largely complied with public health rules as they existed at the time, we certainly now know, and you could argue that it would have been possible to know then, that cruises just should not have been operating at that point in the pandemic. They are even more than airplanes, even more than sporting events. The cruise ships are just a uniquely hospitable environment for this virus, and we've learned that again and again.
And Matt, bring it up to now a little bit of just, what you mentioned, what's been happening in Australia. There was so much investigation of wrongdoing. Bring us up to speed on where some of those conclusions ended up landing.
Well, this has been a huge story in Australia. As a lot of people know, Australia has had a very good pandemic, relatively speaking, to the extent that's possible. Cases have been, for the most part, managed quite well. The Ruby Princess stood as a huge exception to that. This was just an enormous failure of the system on many levels. So there were kind of months of recrimination. There was a very high-profile public inquiry held in Sydney, which wrapped up in August. There is also a police investigation ongoing, being led by the homicide squad of the New South Wales Police, which could portend something quite ominous for someone. We're not sure who might be charged, if anyone. And of course, there are also lawsuits flying both in Australia and in the U.S., which was the home of many of the passengers. So this is a story that continues to run.
Yeah, it's far from being over. Manny, during your reporting, what really struck you? I mean, first of all, I will say in reading it, it's a reminder that it's not just passengers, right, and travelers. They're people with lives and families and stories, and that really, really stood out for me. What stood out for you, though, as you did this reporting?
I was really struck by how far the consequences managed to travel. So one of the reasons this has become so controversial in Australia is that actually it appears, as best anyone can tell, that Ruby Princess passengers seeded an outbreak in Tasmania, of all places, that ended up infecting more than 100 people, required the shutdown of a hospital because the virus had become so rampant in the hospital that the government just had to close it temporarily, and that killed 10 people. And I spoke to the widow of one of the people who was killed in that outbreak. And she understands now what happened, but at the time, she said when they told her that her husband had gotten COVID-19, she couldn't understand how that was possible there, in the back and beyond in Tasmania, miles and miles from any known outbreak. And she said, remember thinking at the time, coronavirus, I thought that comes from cruise ships, and we haven't been anywhere near a cruise ship. So it's just a reminder that this virus, if unchecked, can travel with remarkable speed, really right around the world.
Yeah, no, it is really chilling, and as Carol said, really a reminder that these are human beings, and the consequences, as you say, were stunning and vast. Matt Campbell, thank you so much, and thank you for getting up early there in Singapore to share this with us. It's a terrific, terrific piece of reporting, as it always is with you, senior reporter for Bloomberg. His story is in the upcoming edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Carnival's Ruby Princess docked, then spread COVID to the world. Our thanks as well, of course, to Joel Weber, the editor of the magazine. Carol?
That was a packed 4 hours.
It was. It was. Started off strong with your interview.
Thank you. We
Check that
literally
out
went
on our
around the
podcast
world.
feed. We really did. Yeah, exactly. I know. Started off, where was your
Netherlands.
buddy?
He was in Netherlands.
Yeah.
First
so
time
we start in the
left
Netherlands, we end in Singapore. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
We
that's
stop
how we
off and-
roll. That's how we roll.
Exactly. It's just another day, Bloomberg Business Week. Fed Day tomorrow. We're going to hear from Jay Powell. So obviously the market very much looking forward to hearing what he has to say when it comes to monetary policy and his read on the economy.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see, and whether or not they're, reworking some of their strategies, right? I think everybody wants more and more transparency, if you will. We'll see what he has to say. I'm curious what he has to say about, hey, folks, you should have some outlook. We have some outlook.
Exactly. Good to hear from John Mackey as well. I did want to, one postscript to that. He talked about everything Warren Buffett did after he was 65. John Mackey, 67. Just throwing that out there.
All right, just throwing it out there. Certainly a person to watch, and definitely check out his latest book. He really his perspective is wonderful. For Jason Kelly and our team, this is Bloomberg Business Week.
This is Rich Chiga. He's a Chinese rapper by way of Indonesia, and he's very popular on the internet. This is Joji. He's a Japanese-Australian singer, and he's also very popular on the internet. Plus, Joji invented the Harlem Shake meme. Let me say that again. This guy, Joji, in the blood bathtub, invented the Harlem Shake meme. But we'll come back to that. So Rich and Joji are both signed to 88 Rising, an entertainment company hoping to build a lasting global brand that will outlive singular moments of virality. They primarily create content combining Asian culture and hip-hop, a formula that apparently pleases the internet gods greatly. They've only been around for 18 months, but they're already putting up major label numbers.
I think that we have an unprecedented collective of talent, a group of like predominantly Asian artists, really like making waves globally, which from an independent point of view as well.
88's founder, Sean Miyashiro, cut his teeth launching Vice's electronic music channel, Thumb. But quickly, Sean became interested in life beyond dance music.
I knew that after launching a whole content platform that I have kind of the ability and the know-how to do it again, but like for what was the question.
So Sean moved to the Bronx to start over and figure it out. He couldn't afford an office space, so he worked out of his car at the top of a grimy parking garage.
Everything kind of started here. If you look around, this is my environment. This is my serenity, really. 88 Rising was built here. Built on the grounds of LA Fitness, residence in a parking garage. I was living in the Bronx. I'm just like, damn, where the hell do I go? So I just come up here and I just kind of figure things out every single day. Being like, okay, what the hell is this thing? Coming here was kind of like my own kind of private office, basically. Like, to be honest, I would even go to the bathroom here. I would like take pisses here, you know what I mean? Like, it was, it's just too far to go back down there. When I need Wi-Fi, I'd spend a good part of the day at Dunkin' Donuts. Hi, how are you? Can I get a chicken snack wrap?
Before 88 Rising officially launched, Sean caught a surprise break in the form of a Twitter friendship with a funny 16-year-old kid from Indonesia named Brian, who taught himself English by watching Rubik's Cube tutorial videos on YouTube. Seriously, that's true.
I thought his Twitter was genius, from the future, just crazy, and like just the shit that he was saying, like the memes he was making. But I didn't know that he rapped or anything like that. I really didn't, and he came up with that stick like 2 weeks later.
12 in the morning, pop shells for a living, and baby gon' smell blood trail every minute, bro.
Dat Stick was Brian's first ever attempt at making a rap song, and it immediately went viral.
Everything was great about it, but the one thing that I noticed is the song was hard as hell. Just like everything about it, man. Just like, it was menacing, bro.
Soon after the video dropped, Brian signed with 88 Rising.
I'll FaceTime with Rich. Sorry for calling you Rich Chiga on my phone, Rich. Brian, he gets like super pissed off that he's saved in my phone as Rich Chiga. He's like, dude, am I not a human to you? What's good, bro?
What's good, brother?
How you doing?
Doing great. I did the sound check.
How was it?
It was tight. Hold it still glocks, but you been a bitch, suck a thick cock.
So, Brian could definitely rap, but some viewers understandably took offense at a Chinese kid satirizing rap cliches and calling himself Rich Chiga. But if a group of well-known rappers saw the video and genuinely liked it, that could at least help validate Brian as a legit hip-hop artist. Plus, it could be really funny.
It was just kind of an idea that I just had on the spot. Everything that rappers say is better and funnier and smarter and wittier. You know, it's just more entertaining. We just edit it as tight as possible, put it up, and really worked.
Yo, this nigga got a pouch on and a Reebok pouch. This is the hardest nigga of all time.
You said when you come for a chigga like me, that was dope.
Like, it's just lit, and I think people will take it as a joke at first, but it's like if he ran with that and kept doing more videos like that, it's just lit.
You know, I'd never been to America before, and like all of a sudden, just like I see like all the rappers that I listen to just like reacting to my stuff, and I was like, what? How did this happen?
The reaction video also went viral and even led to a remix of Dat Stick featuring Wu-Tang's Ghostface.
I'll get on that track. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Really, on the remix?
Yeah. Oh, you know him?
And yeah, the remix went viral too. Brian has since acknowledged the misstep in his name and claims he may change it. But for the time being, he's still Rich Chigga to his fans. An ever-growing global audience, hungry for more releases from emerging talent around the world.
I didn't know that it was gonna be this impactful and this important to people, and I'm very thankful and blessed that it has. And every day now that I wake up, it's like it's just like a new mission every day.
A major part of that mission involves Joji. Remember the bloody bath guy? He's a former YouTube personality in the middle of a career transition.
The sound of this song, Will He, it's like a trap song that you can like slow dance to. Awkward prom shit, you know what I mean? I used to do crazy episodic internet videos. It was going well. And one day, it was me and a few friends just in a room. We were casually chilling, and then someone plays the song, and it's brand new at the time. I happened to have a lot of costumes laying around, so I told the other guys, I was like, get in these costumes and let's just dance to it, like who cares? We were like, okay, let's just go crazy at the drop. So that video goes up, I go to sleep, and the next morning, everyone's doing it, like next morning. That taught me a lot about the internet, how people want to just be a part of something. And from that point on, something changed, and I was a little better at understanding demographics and people and what they want to see and what they want to hear. I was friends with a couple other artists who were affiliated with 88, and then I also started to realize that 88 is the bridge between Western and Asian entertainment, and I really wanted to be a part of that.
Joji just released the In Tongues EP, his first project as a serious artist.
Joji's In Tongues record came out a couple weeks ago. It's #2 on Billboard on the R&B charts, which is crazy for, independent release, and he's like a brand new artist.
And the success is even more impressive, knowing he went from creating something like this.
It's just Taco Bell. What could possibly go wrong?
To creating something Tonight, Rich Chigga has a show in New York City. Tickets sold out in an hour.
I came here, I'm first online. I was here at 1. I was the third person online.
So why'd you get here so early?
Because I want to see Rich Chigga. I want to touch him.
What do you guys think of Joji?
He's
That's my dad, son. You guys cop the new EP or like?
Yeah. I woke up at 6 in the morning just to cop that shit. And then I listened to it, and that shit started making me cry.
This is actually kind of exciting. Every time, this never gets old. Like, you live online and social media, but like, there's nothing like just being with the people.
More often than not, viral success happens by accident. And then after an appearance on Ellen or Jimmy Kimmel, the creator's star power fizzles out. But Idiot Rising has figured out how to turn potential gimmicks into brands with an actual following that keeps coming back for the next thing.
Oh, shit!
So keep an eye out for Idiot's next move. But more than likely, it won't be covered on network television or terrestrial radio. Although, as they've already proven, nowadays that really doesn't matter.
Do you want me to turn you so you're looking outwards? Yes, please. How about there? First time we came out with B, Jade said, "It feels like I've been released from prison." Do you want these, Mrs.? Definitely. Definitely. Right. Yeah. And she could say hello to everybody, people she hadn't seen for months.
It's
Hi, it's
Jade.
Jade.
Oh. So you can talk to Jade through this.
Hi, Katie. She's there. Hi.
Every time anyone's seen her, they want to know why she's there. And it's kind of the opposite of when you're in a wheelchair and people see you and they kind of go, oh, should I look? I don't know what the right protocol is. When there's a tiny robot with its bright little eyes going around just looking happy everywhere, it really opens you up for conversation.
You've got some friends here, look.
Hiya. When I saw her for the first time, I remember thinking, this is going to change things. This is one of those points where if this was a book, this would be the cliffhanger. condition called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which means that I have a lot of dislocations, there's a lot of pain, and a lot of seizures and whatnot. So I can end up on my own in my room for long periods of time. A lot of the time, with a condition like my own, of course there's the pain, and the pain is bad, and the dislocations are bad, and the seizures and being in paralysis and never knowing whether you're going to be able to wake up properly tomorrow, that's bad. But what's worse still is being able to count the number of people you see a day on one hand. Are you ready? Sure am. I'm just hoping the connection's going to stay.
Yeah, me too. All right, here we go.
When you're used to just the same little metre by metre and a half window every day, and you've been there for months, being able to just see the sky from somewhere else, or the tops of trees, or a sign, is incredible. Or being able to have that kind of chat in the car that most people probably take for granted.
I'm going to go past Grandma and Grandad so you can give them a wave. Now, if Jade is particularly seizure-y, she can still take part. And that's brilliant, really, because before she would just be left in a bed or in the house with just her carers. It's quite a small world, that.
Right, so there's one of them. Here, this costume I'm busy making at the moment. When I'm not on bed rest and I'm not just wearing pyjamas all the time, I enjoy being able to dress as different characters and go to Comic Cons and that kind of thing, because it just lets me show a different side of myself, and it's a bit of fun. If you can't go out that often, you've got to enjoy it when you do. Was that good? It's one of those weird things where I want to not have to use B because I want to be well enough to be able to go to those places myself. Like, it really makes a big difference to me to be able to go into school. But the thing is, with my condition fluctuating all of the time, I can't go into school reliably. I've been in school via B, and so far it's interesting. There's still a few little things that we need to work out, but for the most part I think it's going fairly well, and it's brilliant because I can really tell the difference between today and yesterday. How yesterday I forced myself to go into school when I wasn't very well, and I was really tired afterwards and ended up having loads of seizures, whereas today I've been able to do all of the work. I've been able to keep a clear head and not be ill, which means I'm able to be more focused on my schoolwork.
So there is my first step of working, is to simplify root 8. The algebra test is next week.
Now I'm trying to make friendships which I'll be able to maintain with B. Before that, I end up letting people down quite often. B gives me hope, yeah. She's just always there, and if I can't do something, she can, and if I need sort of assistance to be able to make commitments, then she's there, and she means that I feel like a more valuable person because I'm more reliable.
love to expose everything you won't admit. And action. This entire video is based on a true story. When I do like motivational speeches or even tell myself like, love yourself and you should love yourself.
This is Lily Singh, but to fans all over the world, she's the YouTube star Superwoman.
What up, everyone? It's your girl, Superwoman. I know we can change the world for the better, one positive day at a time. My parents now know what I do. They didn't know what I did for a long time in the beginning of my career. I was just making videos in my room. They had no idea. Mom, Dad, have you seen my keys? I can't find them anywhere. Because you're always on phone. Until someone called them, like a family member from another part of Canada, was like, Canada, is your daughter making videos? And the mom was like, I don't know, Lily, are you making videos?
Just making videos grew into an entire career. Today, Lily's YouTube channel has some 12 million subscribers, over 2 billion views, and guest stars like Michelle Obama, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Seth Rogen.
I think a lot of young girls are raised to believe that you're going to go to school and then graduate and then get married and then get a job and then have kids.
And Lily was on that path, all the way through a psychology degree at York University in Toronto. But when she started thinking about a career,
I started to immensely panic and think something was wrong with me because I tried to figure out my life and it wasn't working in that straight line.
It was 2010, and YouTube was only 5 years old.
I thought nothing of YouTube. I was probably the last person in my circle of friends to discover YouTube. And I remember when I did, I thought, this is so strange. There's people making videos in their rooms and other people are watching them.
So she figured, why not give it a shot?
I one day posted a video because I was sad and I wanted to be creative and happy.
She didn't know how to edit video or write scripts, so she winged it.
It was so bad and so cringe. And my expectation was literally nothing. I was like, I'm gonna put this video up, a couple of my friends are gonna watch it, probably make fun of me, and that's gonna be the end of this. The second and third video came from, wait, 70 people watched my first one, can I get 80 to watch the next one?
She kept creating, she kept posting, and the viewers kept coming. Lily had found an audience.
A lot of the comments were, oh my God, there's a brown girl on YouTube.
More specifically, Indian. Lily's parents immigrated to Canada from India, and Lily was born and raised in Scarborough, near Toronto.
My home life was awesome. My parents, even though I portrayed them to be quite strict in my videos.
Oi, Lily, where the rest of your skirt, huh? I teach you like this, to walk around like this, showing everything to everyone?
They actually aren't like that at all. They're pretty modern and pretty cool.
Your dress is short. Don't know what for.
And were pretty lenient with me. I mean, I got away with a lot of things. I was a brat. I was a brat.
She had a different idea of what she wanted out of life than other kids. In a grade school graduation slideshow, her classmates said they wanted to be lawyers and doctors.
And then I came up and I was like, rapper.
Making out with your friends, man. But then you say that you hate hoes.
I could just feel my parents being like, why?
Because that's just not something women really did in the Singh family.
I know there was a ton of people that weren't happy about my birth being a female, so I think, and that's some real-ish, but it's a real thing. The best thing I could have done to prove to so many people that didn't want my mom to have a daughter was to become Superwoman. What up, everyone? It's your girl, Superwoman.
It was the name of Lily's favorite hip-hop song by Lil Mo featuring Fabulous.
I love the song so much because it was one of the only songs at the time that was an empowering female song, where Lil Mo's going on about, like, I will save guys with my superpowers, and I will save girls with my superpowers, and I am the Superwoman. I thought, this name that I've had for so long that empowered me when I was younger, I'm gonna make this my screen name. Maybe there should be a new series.
Superwoman didn't just burst onto the scene overnight with a viral video. It was a steady climb fueled by hard work.
The moment that I thought this is going somewhere and this could be a career was the first time I performed internationally. It was in India. And it was the first time where I was truly across the world and people knew my videos.
Singh has transformed herself from a bratty kid to an internet personality to a media mogul. She starred in a feature film, A Trip to Unicorn Island, in 2016. And her book, How to Be a Boss, hit the New York Times bestseller list in 2017 while she was on a 30-city international tour. Lily started out with the goal of getting millions of subscribers and financial security.
Hurry the hell up!
But after surpassing those goals, success has new meaning.
I've really come to terms with the fact that my definition of success is what's the best legacy I can leave behind. And it's not the number of views and the number of subscribers. It is the number of people that can say, this girl changed my life or changed something in my life positively.
Ma Baoli, better known as Gang La, is one of the 4 Grand Marshals leading New York's Pride Parade this year. But in the country he comes from, being gay is still a social taboo. The CEO of a Beijing-based internet company is on a mission to improve the lives of millions of gay men in China.
对于每一个 LGBT 人群来说，即使这个国家不允许你跟同性爱人结婚，但是你仍然要勇敢地去选择你自己的生活，你仍然应该拥有幸福生活的权利。
Ma's company Blue City runs an app and a website specifically for gay men. Blue is one of the biggest gay social networking apps in the world, with an estimated 30 million registered users. Unlike most other apps, Blue is more than just dating or hookups.
大家可以在我们这个软件里面找他自己的情感，然后可以阅读相关的内容，然后可以进行一些娱乐，比如玩游戏啊，比如看直播等等。
Back in 2000, when Ma studied at a police school in northern China, he realized he didn't feel like everyone else.
因为他们都找女朋友，然后谈恋爱，但是我对长得好看的同性的男生，我反而觉得对我更有吸引力。所以那个时候我就到互联网上去找这样的一些资料，然后希望能够告诉我自己我到底是谁。互联网上所有的信息都是负面的，都是错的，就是说同性恋要电击疗法，要被治疗，然后要吃药等等。
After visiting some foreign websites with different attitudes to homosexuality, Ma created his own site for a Chinese audience, encouraging people that
他们也是正常的，他们不用自卑，然后也不用自杀。
Even though attitudes towards homosexuals are slowly changing in China, it's still a social stigma. The virtual world of Blued, where members can be open about their sexuality, is for most a striking contrast to their real lives. This is live streaming, a function added to Blued in late 2015, right as the internet craze was starting to take off in China. Many self-made stars like Jin make decent amounts of money by receiving audiences' virtual currencies and gifts.
我们不是彼此的初恋，初恋这种事儿多不靠谱啊。
For Kyle and Klaus, a couple who have come out, live streaming on Blued means something different.
其实我经常会收到很多粉丝的一些互动的留言，就是类似就是说你们让我们看到了同志情侣之间的一些希望啊，我看到这样的留言我是很欣慰。
The government's rules for acceptable content online may shift quickly in China, with LGBT material in a gray area. Many companies feel the chill of the recent internet crackdown, but Blue City still runs as usual. Ma has won the Chinese government's trust by helping with HIV prevention among gay men. A third of the company's staff are dedicated to screening pornographic and politically sensitive content.
我不太多的愿意去对抗，我更多的愿意去对话，去改变他们的想法。我觉得这个可能在中国来说是更有效的。
In the past 5 years, Blue City has grown from a team of 7 people to a promising business with about 250 staff. Ma said the company earned over $15 million last year, mainly through advertising and selling virtual currencies to live streaming audiences. Now the company is expanding overseas.
我希望吧，通过我们的努力，Blue能够成为全球第一家在美国纳斯达克或者是纽交所上市的这样的同质互联网公司。
I'm about to expose everything you won't admit. And action. This entire video is based on a true story. When I do like motivational speeches or even tell myself like, love yourself and you should love yourself.
This is Lily Singh, but to fans all over the world, she's the YouTube star Superwoman.
What up, everyone? It's your girl, Superwoman. I know we can change the world for the better, one positive day at a time. My parents now know what I do. They didn't know what I did for a long time in the beginning of my career. I was just making videos in my room. They had no idea. Mom, Dad, have you seen my keys? I can't find them anywhere. Because you're always on phone. Until someone called them, like a family member from another part of Canada was like, Canada, is your daughter making videos? And the mom was like, I don't know, Lily, are you making videos?
Just making videos grew into an entire career. Today, Lily's YouTube channel has some 12 million subscribers, over 2 billion views, and guest stars like Michelle Obama, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and Seth Rogen.
I think a lot of young girls are raised to believe that you're gonna go to school and then graduate and then get married and then get a job and have kids.
And Lily was on that path, all the way through a psychology degree at York University in Toronto. But when she started thinking about a career,
I started to immensely panic and think something was wrong with me because I tried to figure out my life and it wasn't working in that straight line.
It was 2010, and YouTube was only 5 years old.
I thought nothing of YouTube. I was probably the last person in my circle of friends to discover YouTube. And I remember when I did, I thought, this is so strange. There's people making videos in their rooms and other people are watching them.
So she figured, why not give it a shot?
I one day posted a video because I was sad and I wanted to be creative and happy.
She didn't know how to edit video or write scripts, so she winged it.
It was so bad and so cringe, and my expectation was literally nothing. I was like, I'm gonna put this video up, a couple of my friends are gonna watch it, probably make fun of me, and that's gonna be the end of this. The second and third video came from, wait, 70 people watched my first one, can I get 80 to watch the next one?
She kept creating, she kept posting, and the viewers kept coming. Lily had found an audience.
A lot of the comments were, oh my God, there's a brown girl on YouTube.
More specifically, Indian. Lily's parents immigrated to Canada from India, and Lily was born and raised in Scarborough, near Toronto.
My home life was awesome. My parents, even though I portrayed them to be quite strict in my videos.
Oi, Lily, where the rest of your skirt, huh? I teach you like this, to walk around like this, showing everything to everyone?
They actually aren't like that at all. They're pretty modern and pretty cool.
Your dress is short. Don't know what for.
And were pretty lenient with me. I mean, I got away with a lot of things. I was a brat. I was a brat.
She had a different idea of what she wanted out of life than other kids. In a grade school graduation slideshow, her classmates said they wanted to be lawyers and doctors.
And then I came up and I was like, rapper.
Making out with your friends, man. But then you say that you hate hoes.
I could just feel my parents being like, why?
Because that's just not something women really did in the Singh family.
I know there was a ton of people that weren't happy about my birth being a female, so I think, and that's some real-ish, but it's a real thing. The best thing I could have done to prove to so many people that didn't want my mom to have a daughter was to become Superwoman.
What up, everyone? It's your girl, Superwoman.
It was the name of Lily's favorite hip-hop song by Lil Mo featuring Fabulous.
I love the song so much because it was one of the only songs at the time that was an empowering female song, where Lil Mo's going on about, like, I will save guys with my superpowers, and I will save girls with my superpowers, and I am the Superwoman. I thought, this name that I've had for so long that empowered me when I was younger, I'm gonna make this my screen name. Maybe this should be a new series.
Superwoman didn't just burst onto the scene overnight with a viral video. It was a steady climb fueled by hard work.
The moment that I thought this is going somewhere and this could be a career was the first time I performed internationally. It was in India. And it was the first time where I was truly across the world and people knew my videos.
Singh has transformed herself from a bratty kid to an internet personality to a media mogul. She starred in a feature film, A Trip to Unicorn Island, in 2016. And her book, How to Be a Boss, hit the New York Times bestseller list in 2017 while she was on a 30-city international tour. Lily started out with the goal of getting millions of subscribers and financial security.
Hurry the hell up.
But after surpassing those goals, success has new meaning.
I've really come to terms with the fact that my definition of success is what's the best legacy I can leave behind. And it's not the number of views, the number of subscribers. It is the number of people that can say, this girl changed my life or changed something in my life positively.
The cubicle represents a tyranny, that it confines your imagination, your thoughts, into a small physical area. Imagine pretty much every software engineer or finance person being able to, disconnect from their desk and look at holographic monitors on a beach and doing their work from there. That's not going to be science fiction. It's the modern office place.
Silicon Valley is all about building the future. A startup called Meta thinks it's getting there first, thanks to a big bet that it's made on augmented reality.
How are you?
Good, thank you. Welcome to Meta.
Thank you.
Call it a 360-degree office where you can spatialize your thoughts as part of your workflow for education, architecture, design, engineering, etc.
People often mix up augmented reality with virtual reality. VR totally blocks your ability to see or hear the real world. AR overlays holograms onto what you already see. Meta has tried to make its version of the workspace feel familiar.
You grab the hologram instead of using a controller or a mouse, and your brain already knows how to do it. In other words, we've designed an operating system that humanity has always known how to use. So you can see this eyeball, which is, by the way, photorealistic. You can see my hand is occluding the eyeball, and now the eyeball is occluding my hand, right? You see those two circles? They get small, and then they turn into this glowing white ball, and then I can move my hand around supernaturally. I can do this with two hands and rotate the thing. I can stretch it. I can throw it back right into the shelving system, and that's all you have to learn to become a modern worker.
And to prove this, the employees at Meta have started to get rid of their computer monitors, trading them in for Meta's augmented reality headsets. Mayron thinks that in less than a decade, we'll all be just wearing strips of glass that can project holograms.
In the early 80s, everybody had computers on their desktop, but no one was using them because they had a lot of work to do. So they were still using typewriters. And at some point, the CEO took all the typewriters away and everybody was forced to use their computers. So it's very exciting to see a new generation of technology, a new paradigm.
I consider us like pioneers in the holographic wild. I'm pulling up my browser with my hands and sending out emails to colleagues and just kind of really acclimating to the new environment.
Now you're putting on my computer, essentially. Our digital lives live on our phones. We have all of our pictures and notes and all these kinds of things. So, and why don't you write yourself a little sticky note? I like it. And go ahead and just take your fist right over the top of the sticky note and close your fist. And now...
Oh, what? Meta's own transition to augmented reality has run into plenty of unexpected problems. And it's still going to be a while before you'll start to see these devices in your office. But I think it's a future worth waiting for.
If we could see these holograms between us, we will have been able to share our work with one another more naturally, more efficiently, and more productively than ever before. Humanity will have evolved slightly.
is often found in the brains of deceased athletes, military veterans, and others with a history of repetitive brain trauma. Hundreds have donated their brains to the VA Boston University Concussion Legacy Foundation Brain Bank.
This is a former NFL player who died in his early 70s, and this is a veteran who also died in his early 70s.
Dr. Ann McKee dissects these brains.
The hippocampus and the mammillary bodies are very important for memory. I can see that they're slightly affected.
McKee recently dissected the brain of former New England Patriots player Aaron Hernandez, who was convicted of murder and later committed suicide.
You'll see right away that the brain is showing signs of shrinkage. You can see the crevices in the brain that you can't see in the normal.
McKee says Hernandez's severe case of CTE impacted his decision-making, depression, and ability to control rage and aggression. Right now, she thinks we're underestimating how many people have CTE.
We were able to distinguish between CTE and controls and CTE and Alzheimer's disease. The next question is, can we do this in the blood, and can we do this in living people? And we aren't there yet with those answers.
But the need for a diagnosis in the living is motivating companies such as Quanterix in Lexington, Massachusetts, to work faster on technology that could diagnose concussions and CTE in as few as 30 minutes. Kevin Rosovsky is the CEO.
It's like a high-powered microscope. And so by doing that, we can see little biomarkers that you couldn't see before in the blood.
Quanterix received a grant from the NFL and just went public. Since then, its stock is up more than 40%. The company sells a machine called Simoa for $175,000 to other biotechs, hospitals, and researchers.
And for the first time in history, we're able to see brain health in blood, and that's a major breakthrough, and that's leading to less invasive testing, and we've already been able to see evidence of concussions, and there's the beginning evidence of being able to see the accumulated effect of concussions.
Quanterix is also trying to detect Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, and ALS. Rosovsky says he thinks diagnosing concussions will be easier than diagnosing CTE.
Diagnosing CT in the living probably is a couple years away. We're real excited to see the progress, but reducing some of that work into actual tests in a laboratory takes time. There's regulatory approvals. There's a lot of red tape that you have to go through.
Also in this race to diagnose CTE in the blood are Athlon Medical and Exosome Sciences. And New York's Mount Sinai Hospital is scanning for the disease in the living. But it's just one step in a series of questions for those with serious head trauma. There's still no cure for CTE.
Even if we had a great idea for a treatment, there's no way to test whether it's effective or not. So that's the enormous advance that we'll get if we can develop a biomarker for this disease.
In Boston, Ann Mostu, Bloomberg News.
don't write about cars for a living without meeting some pretty interesting characters. So I'm circling back and getting cozy with some of my favorite automotive aficionados. We'll talk shop, luxury, and passion in a new series I call Crossing Lanes.
Well, good to see you again. What's it been, a couple of years, right?
I think a couple of years, yeah. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, there's a few new things. I brought something, I think, which could not be more Americana. This is a 1958 Imperial. Just the epitome of American optimism, that post-war, we won World War II, now we started a space program, all cars had fins, and the Jetsons was coming on TV.
How many feet is this car?
I don't know. People lose count after a certain
After
number.
20 feet.
Yeah, they're sort of like dinosaurs from another era. This would sort of be the demographic car that I think the average TV viewer would remember. I mean, look how much room there is in this car. Just hilarious. I love how huge the gauges are. They're like giant high plates. This was considered safety. This
Padded with leather.
Yeah, no great hurry to be safe. And the way you start is you turn the key and then you hit the neutral button. Everything is push button.
Yeah, people think that's a new car thing, but actually,
No.
old car.
If you can type, you can drive. Just press the button and you pull away. How many cars can you cross your legs in the front seat?
I mean, none, except for this. And I'm tall, too.
Comfortable car, isn't it? You don't get all wind blown.
You can have a conversation, even though we're so far apart.
You wonder how many 16-year-olds took their driver's tests in these big, stupid
I
things.
mean, what about the parallel parking section?
Don't
that
even
would
think
be an
about
issue.
parallel parking.
So, what cars did you grow up idolizing when you were a young kid?
You know, when you grew up in a little town in New England, anything with less than 4 doors might as well have been a Ferrari. Nobody had cool cars. I was 9, 10 years old. I was riding my bicycle up a hill, and I saw an old man polishing a 1951 Jaguar XJ120, and I was fixated. He said, "Come on over, you want to sit in it?" It was unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like that. You have to remember, back in 59, 60, most car magazines were black and white. You didn't really get the sense of speed or excitement or anything from it.
Who taught you how to drive?
So many houses had abandoned cars in fields. And there was a 2CV in a field near my friend's house. And when we were kids, we'd go over there and work on it. And we got it running. And we would just drive it around the fields all day. And our moms, you know, would sit at the kitchen window and watch us. Okay, I did all right.
Once you finally started making some real money, what did you finally buy as a special car purchase?
Well, the first car I bought when I came to California was my 55 Buick Roadmaster, which I still have. I got off the plane. I had no place to live. And in California, you need a car before you need a place to live. So I bought the 55 Buick for $350. And I lived in that. I slept in it. I met my wife in it. I got married in the car.
Wow.
Drove the car to my first Tonight Show. And I still have it. That was a special car.
How would you define a luxury car?
Nobody does luxury like the French. The French put a premium on comfort while driving. The cars don't appear to be ostentatious or flashy, but they're exceptionally nice to drive and very, very comfortable. We Americans tend to confuse luxury with crashed, garish. I mean, look at Trump's apartment. Is sitting on a gold chair really comfortable? No, it's not luxury at all. It's like Oscar Wilde, you know, the price of everything, the value of nothing.
Well, have you ever paid more than you thought you should for something that you bought?
No, all I've done is buy too early. I see a lot of people, they buy something because they immediately think they're going to make a lot of money on it. Then when they find out it's not worth as much as they thought, now they hate the car. The most important thing is buy what you like.
Yeah.
And then worry about the price later. I don't mean that from like, oh, I'm so rich.
No.
Better off you pay a little bit more and buy something you truly enjoy.
Yeah.
You know?
If you were 21, 22, 23 now, would you still get into the business?
I always like telling stories and doing comedy. I mean, I always like talking to people. So, yeah, I figured I would. You know, my dad sold insurance, and he became manager. And once a month, to motivate the men, he would put on some kind of goofy show, or he'd play like the Sinatra song, High Hopes, and he'd juggle. And so I thought, well, maybe I'll sell insurance because you get to do a show once a month.
That is very interesting.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Jay, it's been so great talking with you.
Yeah, it's always fun when you come by. We have fun. We have a good time.
Yeah.
And let's continue motoring.
Motoring. That's the proper term.
Mumbai can overwhelm you. For Indians, it's both New York and LA, Hollywood and Wall Street. It offers the sensory overload of the world's second largest country and intricate traditions crafted over millennia. It's a lot to take in if you only have a few days on this colorful but chaotic peninsula. I'm Nikki Eckstein, travel editor for Bloomberg Pursuits, and I'll show you how to make the most of Mumbai. India's outpacing a slew of Western destinations to become the world's 6th largest business travel market. And the Oberoi, a sleek oasis in the middle of all the action, is perfect for business travelers.
Good afternoon, welcome to Mumbai. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. The staff is extremely thoughtful and detail-oriented.
Hi. Ma'am, welcome to the Oberoi. It's very refreshing in a weather like this. Why don't you have a sip?
Nowhere else have I been greeted with personally embroidered napkins and customized suites. Plus, the rooms are spacious, with comfortable beds and large work desks. Across the peninsula, you'll find the Gateway of India, Mumbai's most iconic monument. Though the city name was officially changed in 1995, most locals still call it Bombay. And just behind the Gateway is the Taj Mahal Palace, the city's most impressive hotel. If the Oberoi is all brains, the Taj is all beauty. As you wander the halls, you can feel the weight of Indian history, from the colonial styling to the modern-day masterpieces lining the hall. All the traffic and bustling markets in Mumbai can be dizzying, so yoga near the stunning pool offers a welcome respite.
Experience the luxury of this morning, so you can experience the complete vitality throughout the day.
When it comes to business dinners, head straight to the table, around the corner from the Taj. It's classy without being pretentious, and quiet enough for deal-making. That may be why the locals are obsessed with this spot. The menu is more trendy than traditional, with knockouts like sweet and sour Brussels sprouts and yellowfin tuna tataki. Plan to eat dinner late. 9 p.m. is standard. If you have a day off, escape the clamor of the city by hopping a ferry to Elephanta Island. Eventually, the city fades, and a sort of inner calm sets in. You'll be surrounded by sweet Indian children who toss snacks to flocks of seagulls that trail the boat. You can also hire a speedboat for about $500 to cut the journey from an hour to 25 minutes, but you'll miss the local color. On the island, you'll find a path with about 1,000 stairs and a handful of feisty monkeys. It leads to a series of amazing 5th century caves, lined with relief sculptures dedicated to the Hindu god of Shiva. If you can't make it across the water, you can stay right in the middle of Mumbai where there's plenty to see. Stop by a street-side coconut vendor. They're everywhere. And if you're still jet-lagged, the electrolytes will help. One of my favorite hole-in-the-walls in all of Mumbai is Shri Thakur Bhojanalaya. There's just one choice here: bright and flavorful Gujarati thalis, which are like all-you-can-eat sampler platters. The restaurant was passed down from father to son, and the son is very enthusiastic about his locally sourced cuisine. Since India has gone cashless, ask to add a 10% tip before settling the bill. You can also charge tips for bellhops and housekeeping back at the hotel. After lunch, hit the streets and find the perfect piece of India to take back home. D. Popley & Sons is a family affair where the owner keeps the real jewels hidden in the back room. The owner's son designs many of the pieces himself and sources the rest from Jaipur. Antiques are huge in India, but you can't take anything that's more than 100 years old out of the country. You can, however, pick up carved elephants and crystal drawer pulls salvaged from Maharaja palaces at Essagi's, just next door. Nearby at Phillips, I also found beautiful folk art figurines and an amazing vintage photo collection. For clothing, there's a great spot called Bungalow 8, hidden under the bleachers of Mumbai's biggest cricket stadium. It's tricky to find, but you'll be rewarded with the prettiest kaftans and block-printed scarves, all arranged by color. But back to business. If you have one last deal to close, head to Bombay Canteen. The menu is an ode to India's regional recipes and native ingredients, like red snapper ceviche in a kokum broth or Kashmiri lamb. And don't miss a drink at Air, the rooftop bar at the Four Seasons. Guest bartenders shake up some of the city's best sundowners. Go to make one last impression with colleagues. Or let Bombay make one last impression on you.
With SUVs growing in popularity, it only made sense to get some on this show. So in this review, we're going to compare 3 of the best-rated luxury SUVs on the market. This isn't going to be easy. We've got our hands on an Audi Q5, a Porsche Cayenne GTS, and a BMW X5. I've decided to spend a day in the Hamptons with each of them to get an in-depth look. Now this is the Q5. It's Audi's mid-size SUV, and it starts at about $41,000, which is way more affordable than the other 2 cars that we're looking at. This is kind of like the iPhone of luxury SUVs. It's designed so well, but it's also affordable within the segment. This is a 4-cylinder, all-wheel drive, 7-speed automatic with paddle shifters, 252 horsepower, and there's no lag. Immediate power, immediate response. The minute you step on the gas, you're there. Q5 has by far the most futuristic interior of the 3 cars. It's minimal, it's clean. The sunroof spans the entire width of the ceiling. It's really cool. There's plenty of room for 5 adults, lots of headroom, but this is the smallest car of the ones that we're testing. The trunk is 29 cubic feet, which is in the middle of our range. A family on a trip might have trouble fitting everything in. There are other cars that are more powerful, that look more distinct, but it's also really affordable, and Audi has really kind of hit a sweet spot. So how did it add up? The immediate response really made me feel in control. The horsepower was a little weaker at 252, and the 22 mile per gallon means that this is in the middle of the road. Looks-wise, it was a bit conservative. It's the smallest of our 3, but with a sleek interior. And the pricing is the best at $41,000. This is the BMW X5 Hybrid. That means it gets 56 miles per gallon combined between the electric motor and the conventional engine. This car starts at $62,000, so it's right in the middle of our group. The electric motor and the engine switch off depending on what drive mode, how fast you're going, all of that. What you won't find out from the stats on the website is how big this car feels when you sit in it and how small it drives. It's a nice balance. So the interior, it's not as futuristic, it's not as clean and modern feeling, but it's also a little less full of buttons and levers and gauges. This does feel like it's the roomiest of the 3. I think a lot of it has to do with the natural light. The most visibility for sure. And with the seats in use, the trunk still comes up with nearly 36 cubic feet, which is massive. To recap, the handling was exceptional. 308 horsepower is middle of our range, and an amazing 56 miles per gallon with the combined electric motor. It was sporty without being over-aggressive. The roomiest, but with a toned-down interior. And at $62,000, it's mid-range for our selection. Now, the third car in our group is a Porsche Cayenne GTS. This is a higher-tuned version of Porsche's Cayenne, and it starts fittingly at $97,000. That's by far the most expensive of any car of our group, and it's also the most powerful. Porsche was among the first of the luxury car makers to introduce an SUV. It really sets the standard for a lot of things. The engine here is a 3.6-liter V6 twin-turbocharged engine, 440 horsepower with almost double the horsepower of the Audi, 443 foot-pounds of torque, and you definitely feel it when you push the gas pedal. The thing that you notice are the buttons and levers and knobs and vents. So if you're someone who likes this cockpit stuff to play with, you're gonna love this car. This trunk was actually the smallest at 24 cubic feet, but after you put the seats down, you'll get by. It drives fast, it feels really luxurious inside, it's really striking to look at, it just costs a lot of money. Okay, this car was the most powerful. 440 horsepower, 434 foot-pounds of torque. Unfortunately, only 19 miles per gallon combined. This is a true sports car in SUV form. It had decent space and the interior was loaded with gadgets. But the downside, I'd say, is price. $97,000 means this car will dig deep into your wallet. The
luxury SUV segment is a competitive field. There are a lot of really confident players, and these three are all excellent vehicles. However, after 3 days of driving, I felt the BMW checked the most boxes in terms of performance, agility, style, and value. Was it the fastest or the most powerful? No. But it was the most versatile while moderately priced for a luxury SUV. With the largest interior, the most visibility, and the fact that it's a hybrid with a 56 miles per gallon rating, that just pushes it over the edge. This car has a great value and anyone would be happy to have it.
The perfect sports car should combine sexy good looks with nimble steering, aggressive power, and a high-quality cabin. It'll be expensive, but not so pricey that it's out of reach for everyone. Porsche, Mercedes, and Jaguar have 3 of the top sports cars on offer today. But which is the best for you? Let's get the numbers out of the way. All 3 cars have impressive stats. The Porsches come just slightly behind the Benz and the Jag, but each is a thrill to drive in its own way.
This is the 2017 Porsche 911 Carrera Cabriolet. The engine in this is a 420 horsepower, 6-cylinder boxer engine mounted in the rear. This is Porsche's famous engine.
It's difficult to describe the feeling when you get behind the wheel. This is where that mystical Porsche X factor comes in. The rear-wheel drive on 20-inch Carrera S wheels and Porsche torque vectoring grip the road better than any other model in our group. The AMG GTS is faster and more fun to drive than any other Mercedes. I think it feels like a rocket ship.
This car has a lot to offer. It has that amazing V8 engine, it has the horsepower, it has the torque.
Of course, if you're not careful, the rear-wheel drive AMG will fishtail forward with a mind of its own. That said, it's amazing in a straight line. This is the two-door coupe Jaguar debuted in 2015 as a way to get back in the game. And the company did it with flying colors.
The handling is great. I mean, this car is so perfectly balanced. It's really a treat to drive, especially on windy roads.
The torque that you feel when you drive it is the most impressive of the group. But it's not as connected to the road as the 911, nor as smooth as the AMG. It is tight when it comes to steering and braking. The 911 is eminently recognizable, yet after all these years, it still impresses. The front end is flirtatious, the rear is muscly, and the headlights are friendly. This is Mercedes' bad boy halo car meant to recall the glorious Gullwing SL that Mercedes made in the 1960s. The idea is that its sexy allure will attract young new fans to the brand.
This is the car you want to get to make a really loud statement.
The Jag is all muscles and roar, punched up at the seams like a football player. If you kind of like a hunky mass of metal and gears under your foot, this one is the car for you. Porsche was the first sporting brand to introduce the PDK paddle shift technology, which is quicker and better for city driving than the manual. There is also a back seat in this option, something the other two don't have.
Now, I don't know if you'd put anybody in that backseat except for maybe your dog or someone you don't like, but it is back there and you can use it in a pinch.
Inside, I loved how the Mercedes looks. It has crazy octopus-like round dials all the way through the center and the dash, and everything felt thick and rich. There is plenty to see inside the Jaguar. Lots of loud blue stitching, performance seats, and even a handle for the front passenger to hold onto for dear life. This is the least well done of our three when it comes to interior quality and design, but it's still pretty great. The bottom line? You can't go wrong with any of these incredible machines. But if you want the whole package at the best value, the 911 is the clear winner. Sure, it's not as aggressive looking as the AMG, and it has less power than the Jag. But its incredible connection to the ground, its cozy, perfect German handling, its superior suspension, and its minimal but quality interior mean the 911 Carrera S Cabriolet more than stands its ground. When you hear the word Ferrari, you probably think fast, sleek, or maybe risque. What you don't think is practical. And Ferrari is not the first car you think to take to pick up your Christmas tree. But that's exactly what I did. I drove a Ferrari GTC 4 Lusso 2 hours outside of New York City to Barclays, a fourth-generation orchard and tree farm. I wanted to test out Ferrari practicality.
Welcome to Barclays Tree Farm. I'm Steve Barclay.
I'm Hannah Elliott.
Nice to meet you. Should go find your perfect tree?
Let's do it.
Excellent.
What kind of trees are these?
We've got Douglas fir and Norway spruce in here.
This looks great.
So this is the one,
Yeah,
huh?
I like it. It's good.
Okay, let's do it.
There's not exactly enough room in the back for a tree, but the Lusso has all you need for this errand. It's a 4-seat hatchback that Ferrari debuted last year. Plus, the Lusso has something really helpful, practical even. It's higher off the ground than a standard Rari. Getting in and out wasn't the usual awkward struggle I often have with low sports cars. I would even call this shockingly drivable.
This is the perfect Ferrari for people who love to drive. And I know that sounds crazy because it's the hatchback Ferrari, but the thing about the car is it has a V12 680 horsepower engine on all-wheel drive. That means it has the beating heart of a Ferrari track car that will compete with anything from Lamborghini, McLaren, built into this package that is totally functional.
And an elaborate traction and stability system in the rear that Ferrari calls thrust vectoring. Basically, it smooths out the car's response to unstable conditions like snow, ice, or bumpy roads.
I mean, I had this buying holiday decorations at Target. We had the tree on the top. I had this in snow and slush and ice, and it performs so well.
Inside, the front feels like a very luxurious cockpit, which makes sense after all, the word lusso means luxury in Italian. The back is spacious enough for a couple of adults, and it roars from 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds. Top speed is 208. So what gives? Why did Ferrari make a practical car? Well, to hold on to its most loyal fans. Now, there are rumors that Ferrari will unveil an SUV in 2018, but until then, it hopes to keep Ferrari customers in the family with the Lusso. So hang on, Ferrari fans. Next year, maybe Santa will leave a prancing pony SUV in the driveway. Until then, the Lusso will do. Wow, this is a Callaway Corvette Aerowagon. It is the most powerful car made in the US, period. It's supercharged with the supercharger pushing up all the way through the hood. 757 horsepower, this car will go from 0 to 60 in 2.7 seconds, which is nuts. So let's put it to the test. I'm going to head out to Rockaway for lunch, and we'll see what this beauty can do. So, Callaway, the very same name that engineers golf clubs, modifies these Corvettes. And in this Aerowagon, the main upgrade is a supercharged engine, and it's so fast.
The fuel efficiency is 27 miles per gallon at speed on the highway. That's like prime optimum conditions, but it's still pretty incredible considering most cars with 757 horsepower get like 12 to 13 miles per gallon.
So the Aerowagon part of the Callaway Corvette is totally new this year. It's a huge departure from what a typical Corvette looks like, and that's by design. The trunk is enormous, and that's what you're really getting by choosing to have this option. The interior is just like the regular Corvette that you'd buy directly from GM. It's very much like a cockpit. So the Belt Parkway isn't exactly the Autobahn, but I was able to get a feel for the strength of the supercharger, and I made it down to Rockaway Beach in no time flat.
Hannah!
The starting price is about $130,000. The money goes toward the engineering that makes this car so powerful and fast. But still, that is so much cheaper than what you might find at Ferrari or McLaren or Lamborghini. This can keep up with all of those cars, and it's far less expensive. Sometimes I don't trust love at first sight, not even when a car looks this good. So I decided to put the Tesla Model X through its paces for 5 days in the mountains along the California coast. I needed to know, was this just a crush or a lasting love affair? I first drove the $151,000 SUV briefly in Los Angeles last year, and at the time thought it was one of the best cars I'd ever tested. But a 340-mile road trip can make or break any relationship. One push of the button and the Model X will automatically route your trip according to where the superchargers line up. It probably won't be the fastest route, but you know you won't run out of juice. We were on our way. It was the start of something beautiful. The seats are situated high inside, but they're easy to access, even the back row. And the interior cabin is so quiet I could hear crickets chirping outside as I drove, with the windows up. The car has almost no body roll around corners, and it handled beautifully on the sandy beach. I will say that the battery gauge can be deceiving. It doesn't decrease at a stable rate, so you can jump down in range a lot quicker than you expect. We left this morning with a full charge, and we've been driving for 4 hours or so, so we're down to about 77 miles on the battery. So I asked the car to find us the closest supercharger, and we're driving there now, and we should get there in about 12 minutes. Turns out I had some major time to kill. Hey, Grandma. Oh, nothing much. How are you? Back on the road, I could focus on the feel of the all-wheel drive, test the 3.2-second 0 to 60 mile per hour sprint time, and the 762 equivalent horsepower. It feels really fast when you push down the gas pedal. The brakes are regenerative, so you have to get used to their different feel. I never really did. And the automatic front doors can be tricky. They open when you least expect it. At the end of this trip, I realized the real question here is not, should you buy this car, but do you want to join the electric lifestyle? You really do feel virtuous when you drive it. No fossil fuels here. But owning an electric car saps your time and energy if you're not deliberate about charging. It makes it harder to be spontaneous and free. And you have to be okay with giving up the raw, pure feeling of driving a mechanical car. But if you are that kind of driver, the kind that wants to be on the cutting edge of luxury and technology, you're going to fall in love.
season is upon us, and everyone, including me, is thinking about what to pour for all those holiday gatherings. Hi, I'm Aileen McCoy, here to talk about the holidays and wine. I've picked 3 under $30. Yes, $30. The first wine is a white. It's the 2016 Abbazia di Novicella Kerner, and it costs only $20. Kerner is an exotic white varietal, but what you really need to know is that it translates into deliciousness. This wine is also from an unusual varietal, and unusual, obscure varietals are really in right now. It has fantastic aroma. It has lovely zingy fruit flavors, which are very bright and crisp, so that you feel the wine is bigger, richer, and will go with something that is really quite serious in terms of food. Now we're ready for the red. It's the 2014 Chateau Cartier from Saint-Emilion in Bordeaux, and it costs $27. Classic Bordeaux's do not all cost $100 and up and have to be aged for decades. This is made from 100% Merlot. It's ready to drink right now. Let's taste. It has lovely plum and cassis aromas, just the way a Bordeaux is supposed to, and charming fruit that's really delicious, along with silky tannins. Because it's so fruity and easy to drink, it will go with everything from roast turkey with dressing to a juicy prime rib, and it's perfect for white wine snobs to sip at a cocktail party. Now for the best, the sparkling wine. This is the Schramsberg Mirabelle Brut from California, and it's only $25. It's a blend of Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, and it was aged in 19th century caves on Diamond Mountain. Now let's pop the cork. Bubbles are essential for the holidays and look festive in a glass. The smell of this wine is like just baked brioche, and the flavors are lemony tart and so refreshing. Keep a few bottles in the fridge for when friends stop by or when you need to perk yourself up while you're cooking. Cheers.
Ferrari, you probably think fast, sleek, or maybe risque. What you don't think is practical. And Ferrari is not the first car you think to take to pick up your Christmas tree. But that's exactly what I did. I drove a Ferrari GTC4 Lusso 2 hours outside of New York City to Barclays, a fourth-generation orchard and tree farm. I wanted to test out Ferrari practicality.
Welcome to Barclays Tree Farm. I'm Steve Barclay.
I'm Hannah Elliott.
Nice to meet you. Should go find your perfect tree?
Let's do it.
Excellent.
What kind of trees are these?
We've got Douglas fir and Norway spruce in here.
This looks great.
So this is the one,
Yeah,
huh?
I like it. It's good.
Okay, let's do it.
There's not exactly enough room in the back for a tree, but the Lusso has all you need for this errand. It's a 4-seat hatchback that Ferrari debuted last year. Plus, the Lusso has something really helpful, practical even. It's higher off the ground than a standard Rari. Getting in and out wasn't the usual awkward struggle I often have with low sports cars. I would even call this shockingly drivable.
This is the perfect Ferrari for people who love to drive. And I know that sounds crazy because it's the hatchback Ferrari, but the thing about the car is it has a V12 680 horsepower engine on all-wheel drive. That means it has the beating heart of a Ferrari track car that will compete with anything from Lamborghini, McLaren, built into this package that is totally functional.
And an elaborate traction and stability system in the rear that Ferrari calls thrust vectoring. Basically, it smooths out the car's response to unstable conditions like snow, ice, or bumpy roads.
I mean, I had this buying holiday decorations at Target. We had the tree on the top. I had this in snow and slush and ice, and it performs so well.
Inside, the front feels like a very luxurious cockpit, which makes sense after all, the word lusso means luxury in Italian. The back is spacious enough for a couple of adults, and it roars from 0 to 62 in 3.4 seconds. Top speed is 208. So what gives? Why did Ferrari make a practical car? Well, to hold on to its most loyal fans. Now, there are rumors that Ferrari will unveil an SUV in 2018, but until then, it hopes to keep Ferrari customers in the family with the Lusso. So hang on, Ferrari fans. Next year, maybe Santa will leave a prancing pony SUV in the driveway. Until then, the Lusso will do.
The design of this soy sauce bottle goes back to 1945 in Japan. A teenager named Kenji Ekwan had witnessed the aftermath of the atomic bomb falling on his hometown Hiroshima and was mourning the loss of his sister and father. After seeing the devastation, Ekwan's path changed. He first enrolled as a Buddhist monk, following in the footsteps of his father, but instead he decided to become a creator of things and bring happiness to people. As a young designer, Ekwan got a contract to design a tabletop soy sauce bottle for food company Kikkoman. Soy sauce is a must for Japanese meals, but it was originally sold in big bottles that were hard to hold. It took Ekwan 3 years and about 100 prototypes to complete the design in 1961. The result is a small glass bottle with a narrow neck, a shape reminiscent of traditional Japanese sake flasks. It allows you to see how much sauce is left. It's stable on surfaces and comfortable to hold. The inward angle of the tip of the spout is also perfect at preventing drips and controlling flow. The design of the little soy sauce bottle was just the start of Ekwan's great journey. He also went on to create other icons of Japanese design. In Japan, Ekwan has become almost as recognizable as his bottle, and 50 years later still appeared in commercials for the soy sauce. Today, the bottle can be found on the tables of homes and restaurants in more than 100 countries. And in 2015, the bottle was even exhibited at the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Simple but elegant, this is the design made to create a small moment of happiness without you even knowing it. The design of this shoe starts in Oregon in 1981 and with a man called Tinker Hatfield. He was an architect for Nike, hired to draw up offices and showrooms on the company's campus. After making a statement on the outside of the buildings, he was asked to join the designers on the inside. In a race to develop sneakers, a former NASA engineer had recently introduced the idea of sealing air bubbles in the soles for extra comfort and performance. But competition was fierce, and Nike still needed an edge. Hatfield headed to Paris in search of inspiration. While he was there, he visited the Pompidou Center, a radical building famous for its inside-out design, which exposed the building's components, like escalators and heating pipes, for everyone to see. Hatfield decided to apply the same principle to his own design, revealing the inner workings of his shoe by making the air cushioning system visible. The marketing team thought the air bubble would seem like a weakness, but the Nike Air Max 1 was an instant hit when it launched in 1987. Originally, pairs sold for $75. Now they go for double that. Today, Tinker Hatfield is one of the most successful shoe designers in the world. He even created those legendary self-lacing sneakers of Back to the Future fame. Stylish and innovative, this is the design that stayed one step ahead, simply by being turned inside out.
London, it's easy to recognize. But look closely at a map. In the very center, there's a 1 square mile cutout. This is the City of London, which lives in a city named London. city has its own mayor, laws, and police force. In fact, it behaves more like a separate country within the United Kingdom. This is because the city's been around for much longer than the UK. It was built by the Romans and has remained semi-autonomous ever since. To embody its fiery independence, the city's emblem is a dragon, not a bad choice. You'll spot these statues. They guard the boundary of the square mile. Nowadays, the city's arguably the financial capital of the world. And London is the world's biggest foreign exchange market. But the city has a tiny residential population. Every weekday, workers flood into the banks, law firms, and offices which fill the square mile. But it's not all work. This is 1 p.m. You might say no surprise here, city workers having a drink, but attitudes are changing. The legendary long lunch at the pub is now seen as a bit of a macho relic. In 2017, Lloyd's of London, the legendary insurance market, told its employees the party's over. No more drinks during office hours. But as you can see, not everyone got the memo. Because here's the rub of it. The city had a bit of a reputation. When the after-work crowd go home, the place becomes a ghost town. But that's changing, and leading the way are some high-flying dining spots. Sitting on top of the Heron Tower is the Duck and Waffle. It offers 24/7 service with a hell of a view. This is about as refined as a 24-hour Waffle House gets. But the most talked about new guest, who's reinventing the city's reputation, is called the Ned. Over £500 million has been spent turning this old bank into a private members club and hotel. With 8 restaurants in the lobby and a bar that stays open till 4 a.m, the Ned's injected some late-night atmosphere into the city. This is, after all, the oldest part of London. And following an injection of fun and flavour, it's throwing down a challenge to the rest of the city and shaking off its stuffy reputation.
There's an inherent attraction to light and being human. And I think on a very deep psychological level, light is this way in which we experience the energy surrounding us in a very personal manner. My name is Matt Dilling. I'm the founder of Light Bright Neon Studio, and we manufacture, produce, and restore neon works of art and design. Origins of the creative content of a lot of the work at Light Bright comes from a variety of sources. Sometimes people come with a napkin sketch, some people come with an Adobe Illustrator file, and we have a whole design team who then we kind of work together to help create layouts of what it might look like. And scale it up and create a paper template using a pen plotter. And that paper template actually becomes our guide for what we're going to bend the neon to. We take from the office into the glass shop. We pick out the right size tubing with the right color for the right size project. From there, we heat up the glass tubing. The torches heat the glass well in excess of 1,000 degrees in order for it to get into its molten state. We heat up and bend the glass tubing to match the template. One of our chandeliers has over 100 bends in it. So each one of those bends has to be marked for a heated up bend. We also have to allow the glass to cool between the bends so that the next area can be worked on and heated up in its own unique fashion. It turns into spaghetti, and then we have to make sure that that spaghetti lines back up and cools to the template. We use a blow hose to connect our mouth to the tube, create a volume that's closed, and we can control the pressure in there with our mouth. There's just a variety of challenges that come up inherently in working with glass. Glass can crack due to stress, and sometimes you'll just have a batch that all it wants to do when it gets near a torch is crack. After we've bent various components, we have to go in using the crossfire or the hand torch and actually weld all of those pieces together. The last step on that is then to weld on electrodes onto either end. Each one of those steps is very, very specific. I draw inspiration from so many different experiences. It's hard to come up with one thing that's particular, but one of the ways that I really am able to connect with the creative is to float. Floating is a similar experience to meditation, to psychedelics. Going into a blackened room and laying out in a body of water and salt that's heated to your body temperature, and it allows for all sort of external stimulation to fall away. And your internal world really begins to bubble up and manifest. You really get to experience a different relationship to your mind. I work with neon because I can't not work with it. It's so challenging and so rewarding. And those things are so intertwined that there's no way of separating it out. I've learned so much and continue to learn so much by working with it. I find so much inspiration in working with it, and I just continue to experience new and different things through the medium. It's that close to me at this point. Once the neon tube is completed, we have to hook it up to our manifold for bombarding. The manifold is opened, a vacuum is drawn. We check the tube for leaks with our Tesla coil. We close the tube back off, and we heat it up using a very large and powerful transformer. As the tube is heated up, it releases anything that's not inert inside the tube, and we evacuate that out. We introduce the gas into it, and we We seal the tube off, sealing into that tube whatever gas we introduced into it. I think my favorite part of making a neon light is when I see it lit up for the first time. Different gases, when electrified, emit different wavelengths of light. Neon gas is this very bright orange, fiery red color. Argon gas creates a very intense blue, but that light output that is produced can then be expressed in a different wavelength by coating the inside of the tubes with a phosphor coating that takes that one wavelength of light and emits at different wavelengths. We bring it over to the aging table where we hook it up to an age-in transformer and allow it to settle, age the gas in that we've introduced to it. There's always a stray particle of something left inside the tube. But that time that the oxide coating can act to scrub whatever is left inside the tube while things are getting settled into place. Once the tubes are aged in, we move on to our process of assembling two halves of the fixture together in a jig, gluing up the center of the fixture to its spindle. Once the adhesive dried, we would connect the wires from the fixture together into a transformer, and we turn on power and it lights up. Part of what we love about what we do here is that we try and put out into the world the kind of things that we'd like to see. I still am surprised when it lights up. I'm still excited when I get to see it illuminated. There's an ineffable quality to it. To me, is this insight into the inner workings of the universe. It literally is. It's a way of looking at what is surrounding us in the cosmos in a new way.